Welcome, everybody, to the AZ LAX Report. I'm your host, Brian Patillo, and I'm here today with my co-host, Alex Garwood. It's a beautiful Sunday morning in Arizona, and we are here to give you the latest and greatest lacrosse content in State 48. And starting this week, we are partnered with beagoodhumancoffee.com. Be a good human, live bravely, and love fiercely. Check out their website for coffee, tea, and merch, where 100% of the profits go to the Fight Like Flow Foundation and support pediatric cancer research. Alex, how are you doing today?
Man, I am doing great. I'm fighting hurt here, not injured, but hurt. You know, coach always asks, hey, are you hurt or injured? And there is a difference. I got a little bit of a head cold / allergy season, coming at me with both hands.
Time of year.
Yeah, that time of the year. But my spirits got lifted when I went to Costco and found out that they started carrying my sugar-free Snapple iced tea. So super locked into that. Snapple, if you didn't know, has a random fact of the day under each of the cap, under the cap. So I always enjoy reading those. But yeah, excited to get to this episode and share some of the two really, really strong interviews that we have and get to the weekly rundown.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, and for those who listened to the episode last week, we encourage you to. If you have not, we encourage you to listen to all the episodes. But specifically last week, we did have an interview with Mary Kay Rogers, who talked about the story of her daughter, Kylie Rogers, and the Fight Like Flow Foundation. That's where the beagoodhumancoffee.com website came from. Please check it out. If you want to know the story about it, go back and listen to episode 2. We're going to help introduce them in the beginning of our episodes going forward. We really want to make sure we show some support to them. They got a great cause over there and everything they're doing. Now, with that said, let's jump into the lacrosse. We got a lot to talk about this week as we get into what will be a quieter spring break week. But let's jump right into the ALL, I think, Alex. And we can go back to Tuesday, March 5th. We're going to run through some of our games here. Cactus ends up defeating Notre Dame Prep Varsity 2, 7-6. Looking at this one, this is a close game, and you know me, I'm a goalie. I want to give the goalie some love, so I'm going to shout out goalie Braden Pulaski with 11 saves for Notre Dame, and Benjamin Strauss with a whopping 19 saves to secure the victory in that game. Moving on, Scottsdale High travels to and defeats Foothills 18-9. Always good to get a nice W when you've got a long bus ride ahead of you. What do you have any good bus traditions or things that you guys would do on road games when you were coming back from some victories?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think back to sort of like the movies and or shows that we watched. Like in high school, I know the big thing was watching Miracle, and we had a couple kind of bus staples like that. Also just the energy coming back from a win is always just so much better than a long kind of quiet bus ride. It usually takes an hour or two before the guys are, opening up again and kind of done kind of processing the loss. But yeah, I would say in high school it's definitely Miracle. We watched 300, a couple of those kind of movies. Yeah. And then in college, oddly enough, our kind of bus TV show was My Name is Earl. Shout out Coach Rapkin for bringing the My Name is Earl tapes.
Nice.
That became kind of a cult classic for our team.
Yeah, that's good. We definitely, for our high school travels on Long Island, we were mostly in school buses, so we didn't have the videos going until college. But we were a big singing group. We would sing a lot of songs, kind of do some karaoke without the karaoke music. We did have the Sachem fight song. I'm not going to sing it now, but if the listeners want that, perhaps I'll do a rendition at some point in the future. But that was always our thing. When you came back from a big win, we were excited on the bus. You had a long ride. You'd sing. We used to also sing right when you would make the turn getting into the high school. We'd sing "God Bless America." That was the tradition we always did if we came back from a win. So we'd as we're pulling into the school, the whole bus is singing "God Bless America," and that was probably more for football, but we did it a few times with lacrosse too. So
how often
maybe I'm just confusing some of those
did
memories.
you have to take a bus in high school?
Oh, we went to every game, but sometimes it's only 20, 30 minutes. That's kind of how far you had to go sometimes. And then your local teams might have been 10-minute bus ride. Connecticut was a big rivalry for us. They were right on the other side of the lake. But all right, that's enough of my old times. Nobody wants to hear about us, I don't think.
That's right.
Well, let's hear from you, though, because also on Tuesday night, Pinnacle comes up with a big win against Boulder Creek, 6-5, defensive battle there. So, Alex, what do you got in that game?
Oh man, yeah, that game had a little bit of everything, right? It was a huge kind of defensive battle, featuring, in my opinion, the top two goalies in the state, Aiden Ray and Kyle Kelly. Aiden had a save percentage of 68.8%, and Kyle had a save percentage of 66.7%. So, and Aiden had 11 saves. So, really, really strong kind of showing from both of the kind of the top class of goalies in our state. I know one of the keys to our game was to somehow limit Clancy Brosius, who had 10 goals in their previous game against Oro Valley. Apologies for somehow missing that last week. I'm going to go ahead and blame the stats. I'm sure, they were not in there, or else we definitely would have seen that. We held them to 1 goal on the night. I was really proud of the way that the guys played. We played really well off ball. Clancy's just a menace in the crease area, so being able to kind of limit that was really good. We only scored 6 goals, but 5 of them came from different players, really kind of balancing out that offense, which is something that you always want to see. But yeah, it was a good showing for the boys and a good way to end the first half of the season before spring break.
Yeah, it's a great performance there. Big victory for the Pinnacle Pioneers. So nice job. Moving on, we also had Brophy played in a state championship rematch. I think we previewed this one last week. We mentioned it. They did defeat Perry in the state championship last year, even though Perry had beat them in the regular season prior to that. And this time it was Brophy continuing their winning ways. Big win, 16-6 was the final. Pretty balanced scoring effort from Brophy. Looking at the stat sheet, Laird Miller, 3 points. Josh Busey had 4 points. Eric Wolfson, 3 points. So very balanced from the usual players on Brophy. And I don't have the exact face-off numbers, but I know Dion James continued to be a real dominant factor in the face-off X. And I have mentioned this in a broadcast on one of the later games. I think he's in running for MVP of that team. And I think Coach Harbison has kind of mentioned that in some other conversations. They've got so many skilled players, but Dion's ability to dominate time of possession by really being strong on the face-off X has been such a huge piece to them being able to wear down teams. Even when their offense isn't clicking right away, they get a lot of extra possessions, and he's gone a really long way towards them at the point they're at now. So good player there, Dion.
Yeah, definitely. Notre Dame Prep continued their undefeated streak with a win over DV 12-5. Caleb Casey, another face-off guy that made a big difference with 10 face-off wins, and goalie Luke Lamont, 15 saves. Not a small feat there.
Yeah, good play by the goalie from Notre Dame Prep, Luke. He's filling in after graduation of Jim Hart, who was a good goalie there for a few years. So they're continuing that tradition of goalie play at that school.
Definitely. Kind of moving on to Wednesday on the 6th. Arcadia had a real big win over Brophy V2, which got the better of them last year. Luke Mellon had 5 points and Davis Witherspoon had 6 points. Fun fact, coached both of those guys in the first season of Team 48 in 2020. COVID hit, and basically all of our tournaments that we had scheduled to play in got canceled. There was one tournament that we were able to play in here in Arizona, although they were in 8th grade at the time, and this is a high school tournament that we decided to just enter in, and we actually got a win against the high school team, which is kind of a high for that season with so many disappointments with things getting canceled and everything else. But yeah, shout out those two guys.
Nice, yeah. And then moving on to Thursday, 3-7, Notre Dame Prep defeats Scottsdale 16-12. Will Elfine, 7 points, trying to get that victory for Scottsdale. Comes up short, though. Balanced on the other side by Cooper Perry with a solid 9-point game, 6 assists, and Gunnar Perry, 5 goals. So we do believe they're brothers, and that's probably used to throwing the ball to each other in the backyard and growing up, and they see them do it on the varsity field there. Notre Dame Prep is continuing their winning ways in the ALL. It's going to be a good matchup when they get to play Brophy later in the season.
Definitely. Kind of moving on to Friday Night Lights here. Cactus defeating Sal Point 10-9. Love those one-goal games. Always creates a really good atmosphere. Blake Pollard led that one with 7 points, and I'm going to have to, watch the film and really check the stats on this one, but Benjamin Strauss, goalie for Cactus, with a whopping 26 saves. Brian, what are the most saves that you've ever gotten in a game? And why is it not 26?
Thinking about it, right? Yeah, no, I definitely never had 26. I honestly don't know the most I had. I feel like I don't even know if I ever cracked 20, to be honest with you, but I maybe once, but I think anytime you get kind of 15, 16 saves, kind of up in that range, you probably had a pretty good day. So congrats to Benjamin. Good game there. And yeah, we'll have to get the Elias Sports Bureau to confirm that stat line there.
Yeah, that's incredible. Cactus Shadows defeated Higley 11-9. No stats on this game, but credit to Cactus Shadows for grinding out a win. West Valley defeated NDPV2 9-7. Max Matthew led the offense with 4 points, but their goalie, once again, kind of a theme here this week. Nathan Bowden really held it down in cage, 17 saves and a 70% save percentage. Brophy fell to visiting Loyola Los Angeles 10-7. I'll throw this one to Brian since he was actually on the broadcast. Brian, what happened in that game?
Yeah, and this was a good one. You got to see a nice game here. Ultimately, Brophy comes up short for their first loss of the season. A couple interesting things in this game. They actually ended up playing with college rules or slight variations to college rules. So we had an 80-second shot clock. So a little different for both teams, playing a style that's not the same as when you see these ALL matchups. I don't think it really affected the game too much. It did keep it, I think, up and down with a lot of kind of excitement. You didn't really have that sort of stall or slow offense. I don't think anybody really ran into any shot clock issues, but good game with application of those rules. Really back and forth. I thought these were two well-matched teams together. The team defense for Loyola really impressed me. Brophy was not really able to kind of initiate their offense the way they normally do. I talked to Coach Pat Harbison after a little bit. I think he felt they were a more skilled team, but Loyola was very disciplined. And I think that showed up in that team defense aspect. And I was impressed by the size of these guys, too. That normally, Brophy's got some big kids, especially that defensive unit.
Definitely.
Talk about guys like Charlie McGinnis and Todd Baldiga. But Loyola had some big boys of their own, too. And I think that helped kind of that even matchup as the game went on. Unfortunately, about 4 minutes left, the game got delayed due to lightning. I believe it was 9-7 at that point, Loyola. So 4.5 minutes left. Anybody's game, really. They end up having to sit for 90 minutes of a delay. So really kind of kills the momentum of that game. And when they do ultimately come back, Loyola continues to hold on for that victory. So Brophy will have to do something they haven't had to do so far this year, and that's come back off of a loss. And we'll talk a little bit about their games coming up next week and more about that. But that about wraps up our week in review. So a lot of action in the ALL. And before we get into next week, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the lax numbers rating. So we've mentioned this, I think, earlier in the first episode. For this season, for the postseason, the teams are going to be seeded by a lax number rating. So Lax Numbers is a website that was originally, there originally used to be a website called Lax Power back in the day. All the old people listening, myself included, probably remember Lax Power. The young kids, they probably don't know about Lax Power, but used to be basically a repository for high school lacrosse information and stats and forums that were a little interesting. You ever spend any time on the Lax Power forums when you were playing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was just a lot of guys on there talking smack about refs, other players, other teams, parents. Like it was a fest. To say the least.
Yeah.
But, there were some positive conversations too about like gear recommendations for new players and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was just a place to kind of vent and to complain about the scores that why their team should be 6 points higher on Lax Power, and it was great. Yeah.
So back in the earlier days of the internet, there we had Lax Power and Lax Power ratings. That site ultimately did shut down, and I believe some of the guys who were around building that came up and run now this Lax Numbers website. So let's talk about what it is. So Lax Numbers is supposed to be an objective way to rank teams. Basically, it comes down to saying how well did this team play against other teams and how good those teams were. So it looks mostly at things like your average goal differential, which does have a cap of a maximum of 10 for each game. So running up the score does not necessarily help your ranking, and strength of schedule. And that strength of schedule continues to vary and change every time more information is added into the database. So what does that mean for the ALL? We mentioned earlier, the 12 teams will make the playoffs when we get to the end of the season here. The top 11 will be seeded based on their Lax Numbers rating. Those are going to be 11 teams from the Grand Canyon and Desert Conference. So if you want to see what the rankings are, you can go to the ArizonaLacrosseLeague.com website. And when you go to the tabs up top, you're going to see in-state rankings. When you click that, it's going to bring you to the Lax Numbers page, and it will show you the 2024 Arizona rankings. Few things to remember. These get updated at Monday, on Monday mornings. So if there's a game or multiple games a week and you don't see the results yet in the Lax Numbers rating, that is expected. The final day of the regular season is April 19th. So the next day, 8 a.m., will show the final in-state rankings, and that will be how the tournament's seeded. Now, just a reminder, these are going to be in-state games only for our ranking purposes. So you don't need to, if you don't have a lot of out-of-state games or whatever the results are in those games, it won't matter. And then lastly, if you're curious a little bit about the specific numbers and how they're calculated, when you go to a team on the Lax Numbers website and you click their name, there is a tab for rating math. And in every game, you will see the goal differential and anything else that pertains to the algorithm and how their rankings are. So that's a lot of info, but hopefully that helped explain something that is maybe a little bit nebulous to people. What were you following along, Alex? Do you think you've got a good grasp of that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right. So with that said, I'm going to just run through our top 10 in-state rankings for the first time here based off Lax Numbers. So we have Brophy Prep. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing to note, guys, about Lax number 2 is the rankings actually don't update live. They come out on Mondays. So everything that we have is going to have to wait until Monday for everything to be reflected in there. So as you kind of see the rankings now, this is reflected for last week, just so the listeners know.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mentioned the Monday thing, but I didn't realize, if our schedule, it's going to be a good point. We may have to revisit how we update this and try to keep people with the most up-to-date information. But
we could post it on Monday.
Yeah, maybe we do that. Maybe we mention it or something. Well, we'll see how we can get the listeners the most up-to-date information. With that said, as of Sunday, March 10th, let's go through our 2024 rankings. Brophy Prep number 1, Notre Dame Prep number 2, Perry 3, Boulder Creek 4, Desert Vista 5, Arcadia 6, Pinnacle 7, Corona del Sol 8, Oro Valley 9, Higley 10, and we might as well do 11, Scottsdale High at 11. Now, one thing to just know, and this is where you always get this controversy and things, right? So remember, this is based off of scores and an algorithm, and over time should hopefully balance out, because there's probably some people listening going, Boulder Creek's 1-3. How are they number 4 and Desert Vista's 3-3, or Arcadia that's 3-1 are below them? So check the website out. You can see how the numbers are calculated. Again, strength of schedule is a big piece of this. So keep that in mind as you're looking at it, and that should get updated as the weeks go on. All right. That's a lot there, Alex. We think we got a good portion of information there for the ALL, and that's fitting because this is going to kind of be entering into a spring break week for the ALL. Most teams don't have action. I didn't see, looking at the schedule, there's 2 ALL games. South Point's playing Foothills on 3/14. They actually have a quick turnaround as they'll play the next day against West Valley on 3/15. So we have limited ALL action in a spring break, but we do want to bring up Brophy. They will be playing, continuing to play several out-of-state games. We mentioned their game against Loyola on Friday night. They will continue with 2 out-of-state games this week. They play Dallas Jesuit tomorrow. When you're listening to this, it'll be Monday, 7 p.m. start. and then they will play the Episcopal School of Dallas on Thursday, 3:14, 7 p.m. You can watch both of those games on APN Video on the YouTube page. There is a stream there, and for those who've been listening, you get to hear my voice do the color commentary for those games. So check them out, Alex, and check them out, listeners.
Definitely.
All right. Outside the ALL, since we're going to have a quiet week, what else is going on? What have you been watching, and what are you thinking about watching?
Yeah, so I hope all you guys watched the Hopkins-Syracuse game last night. Awesome game. Syracuse won at 14-13. It's great to have kind of two historic programs kind of back in, relevancy again and winning with really strong teams and, compelling players. 22 for the Orange. Joey Spallina had 6 points in that game. So just watching, this young talent kind of come into their own and in a league like that is just phenomenal to watch, especially in the conversation that we get to in our interview later today. We're going to kind of allude to watching lacrosse and watching for entertainment versus watching to get better. So just kind of a preview for that.
Yeah, Joey, good player, Long Island product, comes from a lacrosse family. His dad, obviously a coach. His uncle, Brian Spallina, was a good defender. Had a reputation for beating guys up pretty well, I think, when he played. I remember that and sort of the stories I've heard from his days. But yeah, Joey, I got to give a shout out to Revolution Athletics. That's a place that I trained at growing up on Long Island in my high school and college years. Dustin Kowell started that business as a speed training group, and he built it into this really cool. I think they got multiple locations now, but he does speed training, strength training, and he's been responsible for training several really, really good lacrosse players you might have heard of. Joey Spallina is one of them. I think he's worked with Joey almost his whole life. Brennan O'Neill, who I think is the best player in college lacrosse right now.
He's pretty good.
yeah, he's not bad. A few other guys. Xavier Arline, the attackman from Navy, who also plays on their football team. He was a Revo guy too. So shout out to Revolution Athletics back on Long Island, turning out some pretty good athletes at the college level. Joey Spallina being one of many. So there you go, Justin. All right. And I think that about wraps up everything. And I think you're going to you're traveling a little bit this week coming up, aren't you?
Yes, sir. So on Wednesday, so I will not be on the podcast next week. We're going to have a little spring break special, if you will. I will be on a plane on Wednesday going to Kentucky to do the Bourbon Trail. So in episode 1, Brian alluded that I was kind of a whiskey guy. So going out there with my dad, my brother-in-law, and his pops, and gonna go tour some distilleries and check out the beautiful Kentucky countryside, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds like it's gonna be right up your alley. So Enjoy that trip. A good time to go. You mentioned we're going to talk with Cody, and we want to kind of give everybody just a little bit of a different perspective. We're going to talk about some of those MCLA programs out here. Maybe Cody's horrible golf game that's actually worse than mine, if you can believe it or not. Maybe that'll come up. But yeah, we're gonna try to just add some excitement and some different things to talk about. We'll see if maybe we get a surprise guest or something too. But we hope everyone will end up catching that episode next week, and we hope you enjoy your time out there. And you're gonna have to maybe send some clips on the Instagram page when you're on your tour there, and show us what it's looking like when you're traveling.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely keep you guys up to date on where we're going, and if I see anything cool, I'll be sure to post it.
All right, awesome. So with that said, we're gonna kick it to our 2 interviews. We have Dustin Kowell, the head coach of Arcadia, who joined us to discuss his career and his background, as well as going into their season so far this year and the program he's worked to develop. And then we also have Dylan Finder, talented junior player from Perry. We'll talk to him a little bit about their team and his future as he prepares to be a Scarlet Knight of Rutgers in 2 years. Still got 1 more year here, but we'll hear about him as well. So enjoy the interviews.
All right, our next guest is the head coach of Arcadia High School in his 4th year, previously at Chaparral High School. played at NAU as a midfielder. Welcome to the program, Dustin Kowell.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. Just enjoying some time off for spring break. How about you guys?
Good. About to do the same. We actually were not able to have a last practice last night as we had thunder and lightning all over up here. So
Yep.
kind of started spring break a little early for us.
There you go.
Yeah, kind of a crazy storm that came in. I was at the Brophy game and we had a I don't even know if they ended up finishing it, but they had a delay of 4 minutes left in the fourth.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't get the final uh, decision on what they did. I thought they were going to wait it out, but there was a lot of lightning, so I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Um, well, Dustin, seeing as how you played at NAU, like were you born and raised in Arizona? Where are you from?
Yeah, no, so I'm originally from Southern California, a city called Thousand Oaks. So didn't actually start playing lacrosse till my summer of my sophomore year, going into my junior year. So kind of
Wow.
a late start to lacrosse. A buddy of mine, I was a huge baseball player, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, I think you'd really like lacrosse." So he had some extra gear and just hit the wall like crazy, and was out throwing with him and a bunch of the guys for a while, and then just fell in love with it. So, um, kind of a funny story. I actually didn't play for my high school. I was so invested in baseball that the only way I was playing lacrosse was the club scene in the off season. So played some club ball throughout my high school career, and then was able to uh, went up to a junior college up in San Luis Obispo, California, at Cuesta College, and kind of a crazy story. So I actually started the program there. Was in love with the game, but obviously they didn't have a program, and Cal Poly is right there, but obviously wasn't a student, so couldn't play for them, and so just kind of started thinking about maybe what would it be like if there was a team at this school. So started petitioning and found out some students around campus had also been playing and just couldn't play anymore because the team or the school didn't have a program. So I was able to kind of wrangle up about 20 guys and was able to get the school behind it. And the 2 years that I was there, we were able to field a team and got to play Cal Poly and some other community colleges up in that area. Um, Obviously, I don't think the team's around anymore, but just kind of a cool thing for me to have that happen, to keep playing. And then how I ended up at NAU was kind of looking at different schools on the West Coast. Was kind of picking between Colorado Boulder and NAU, and fell in love with NAU. And it was kind of funny. I was in the library, the bookstore, getting all my textbooks and stuff for classes and whatnot. And I had on a lacrosse hoodie, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you play lacrosse?" And I was like, "Yeah, I played, a little bit in high school and played in my JUCO." And he's like, "Oh, I'm actually the head coach here." And so we we ended up having like this 2 hour conversation in the corner of the bookstore at NAU, and
Wow. Yeah.
ended up, falling in love with his philosophy and the culture, and met some of the guys that weekend. And so that's kind of how my NAU career came about.
So the coach
Wow.
ambushed you, the classic ambush in the corner of the bookstore tactic. Love
He
it.
did. Yep, he did. If I wasn't wearing the hoodie, probably would have had to find out about the team somewhere else. But yeah, it was kind of a right place, right time.
Yeah, and the other story just of kind of starting the program at the other school too. That's a unique one, so
Yeah,
that's
it was
good.
cool. It was an awesome
Yeah.
experience. I mean, it was kind of
You
a
all
ragtag team, but we were able to play. I think in the 2 years I was there, we were able to play like 7 or 8 games. And
Who did you play?
so the first game ever was against Diablo Valley College, which is kind of it's a community college up in kind of near in between San Luis Obispo and the Bay Area. They're a well-known community college up there. And then there's a few other schools kind of in that in between the Bay and San Luis Obispo. Like I said, we played against Cal Poly, which was more of a scrimmage than an actual game. But yeah, we kind of just did a round robin with a lot of the community colleges in that area. Went down to play Santa Barbara, who's now an SLC team, Santa Barbara Community College. And funny story, so Matt Blamey, who's the head coach at U of A, actually started this community college conference. This was kind of Matt's like first career go around. So before he went to Sonoma and some of the other stops he made before U of A, he like built this like community college league. And so we were part of that. And then obviously he went on to do bigger and better things. But yeah, so we got to play some JUCOs and Cal Poly, which was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of small world in the lacrosse community. We always say that.
Yeah.
Another example there with that coach. I was gonna say you look like a baseball guy to me. If I didn't know you were a lacrosse guy and somebody asked me, I would have been like, he looks like a baseball guy.
Yep.
So you know
Yeah.
what? Now it makes sense. Now I
Yep.
know. All right. Well, let's take it a little bit to your current team and current position as the coach of Arcadia. So currently, and we got this wrong in our last interview because our website we're updating. We're trying to make sure we're live here. So we believe you're 4-1. Does that sound correct?
Yep. 4-1 league play and
Perfect.
5-1 overall because we've had one out of state game against Coronado Vegas.
That is right. I do remember that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the team this year and what's been the key to the success that you've had in the first half of the season?
Yeah, I mean the team's obviously flying high. We're doing really well, and I think one big change that we made in the off season was really establishing a good culture. I think in years past we've had Arcadia's always had a lot of talent, but it's just trying to find the right culture and having the guys be bought in, and not having guys that have one foot out the door. So we've really established a strong culture, and this group of guys have been in the program for a good amount of time. I only have one senior this year, and so it's kind of a younger group that'll be together for a while. And yeah, I think we've just established a really strong culture, and I think the guys are bought in, and we've kind of changed our practice structure and kind of the way we approach the game, just much more fast paced, up tempo, and eliminating the mistakes during the games, which is a huge result of how we handle stuff during practice. And it's obviously impacted the game and how our season's gone so far. We're kind of become a different team. A lot of coaches that we've played so far have already made comments of this is a different Arcadia, and it's really awesome to hear and see the transformation that the guys have made. So it's been nothing but a great start, and so we're hoping to continue that in the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's great. And you talked about kind of culture being a big thing. If you had to put the team culture in one word, what would you use?
I think I would say grit. I think part of my comment before was one foot out the door. I think the grit of this team, they're willing to, a lot of them are willing to stay after practice and get more reps. The cage is never, I have to like beg them to take the cage off the field every night at practice because the guys just want to continue to get better. One thing that I've never seen before in the 4 years here is before practice, our guys are hitting the wall, and in years past, the guys would just be kind of hanging out by the bags, just talking up until practice starts. And so I would say the grit of the mentality is they're willing to put the extra work in, outside of the practice time, and when they're in the practice time, they're constantly going 100%, and they're holding each other accountable. So could use a bunch of different words, but I've definitely noticed a better grit of this team than years past.
I think
I like that.
yeah, I was gonna say I think that's a really good point that you made about kind of the players buying in and kind of holding each other accountable, because us as coaches can only say so much. Like we need the buy-in of the players and the players to kind of hold each other accountable. Like what kind of key players would you say were kind of instrumental in really kind of embodying this new culture at Arcadia?
Yeah, so I mean, I obviously got to give credit to my one senior. So John Coulter, he's obviously been in the program for he's a 4-year varsity starter, and so he's been around and he's seen it all. So I think he's obviously a huge contributor to that new culture. I think him being the one senior, he's got to put a lot of that weight on his shoulders. And then we've got a massive junior class. It's funny, Alex, I kind of contribute our roster similar to you guys last year, where it was just a heavy junior class. And so we're kind of in that same boat. I think I've got around 20 juniors. And
Yeah,
so
I think we had like 16 last year. Yeah.
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 So the other 3 captains are all juniors. So, guys like Andrew Nickel and Luke Mellon, other vocal guys like Davis Witherspoon, James Richardson, Gavin Fuller, our goalie. So, these are all Roman Reinthong. These are all guys that are, juniors and have been in the program, but once those large senior classes left, I think they were the ones that really helped work the culture out with John and kind of molded into what it is now. And a lot of those guys, I've heard you guys talk about them with with the shout outs, and obviously you guys have coached some of them, but you guys can attest there's some guys that are very, very committed to the game, and they want to build that culture the best they can.
Definitely. And it's good that, your big kind of culture pieces are also, big time contributors, on the field come game time as well.
Mhm.
Any particular shout outs from, players on your team that are having a particularly, strong season, or maybe even just talking about your most recent game with Brophy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously gotta give love to Luke and Davis. Both are, on the heels of Cooper Perry for, top three in the league right now. And they're both having great starts to the season. There's a ton of guys that I could give credit to, but obviously those guys deserve a ton just for the first half of the season. Gavin between the pipes has been amazing. He's you know, been a huge, vocal leader for us defensively, and obviously, John and Nick will carry that weight on the defensive side. And yeah, our game against Brophy V2 was obviously great. We, had a loss to them last year in overtime. So, our guys were very motivated going into that game, especially before spring break. They wanted to start it off on a good note. So it was, always good to, regardless of it's V1, V2, you'll always take a win against Brophy. So
That's right.
we're excited about
for
that.
sure. Yeah. I want to go back to something that you were talking about, especially because I know we've got, a lot of parents who listen and they probably help out coaching at kind of the youth level and in some other areas, and maybe even some other coaches in the ALL who listen, but not to give away too much of a secret sauce, but you talked about kind of changing your practice philosophy, maybe practice structure. Can you talk about that a little bit more? What does that kind of look like, and how are you making those changes?
Yeah, so I think they're just it's much more fast paced and tempo practices. I think the biggest thing we've eliminated is kind of the dead time in between. So whether it's, making sure that water breaks are set at a certain time, obviously the guys need to stay hydrated, but maybe, you know, scheduling those at certain parts of the practice so we're not, having as much dead time. I think obviously the guys, whether it's the little things like ball hunts or moving to the next drill, it's constant whistles, it's constant tempo, just making sure that they're, we're not, slow motion during the practices. I think also, kind of changing the drills. I think one thing that we lacked last year was kind of game scenario drills, and so we've taken a huge pride this year in making sure that everything we're doing in practice is game speed, game ready, instead of just kind of the lackadaisical drills, just getting through the practice. So that's been a huge thing that I've noticed is our guys are much more prepared for games because we're kind of almost playing a game in our practices just with the way that we're doing our drills.
Yeah, that's good. I like that up tempo philosophy. I think we did that in college a lot, and I think you hear it's a. I think the idea of putting the time and the structure to all your drills, but you really are like sticking to it. It's pretty easy. I think everyone has a practice plan when they go into practice, and it's like, I do this for 20 minutes, do that for this. But when you put it in kind of like that game schedule mindset, and you keep everybody moving through it, I agree. It's good to hear that you've had success in building that into your program, and it's certainly showing up on the field. So
Yeah.
that's great there. So if you were going to talk to some younger players that maybe want to play at Arcadia at the varsity level, what kind of advice would you give them, and what are you looking for in a varsity level player who's going to contribute to Arcadia?
Yeah, I think the first part of that is obviously just to learn the game. My guys would probably laugh if you asked them that question because they would have it immediately ingrained in their brain that I drive to them that they have to watch lacrosse. I think you can obviously hit the wall and put the work in on the field and do constant drills and everything you need to do with your stick as much as you can, but watching the game is just as important. You can learn so much about your position, the game, the flow, just by watching it. And I try to emphasize my guys watching the college game more than the PLL because I think, as you guys know, the PLL, the guys are we don't need our guys doing those things out there
It's
because
such a different game.
they're
Yeah.
at that level where they can, I don't need my guys trying to be Josh Burns between the legs. So I think, watching the college game is specific to what I try to instill for younger players, just so they can understand the ins and outs of it, the flow, and their position specifically. I love to kind of have certain teams and certain, players that I like to direct my guys to watch, because there's so many good teams and so many good players that they can really try to embody their game and their IQ with it. So I would say watch a ton of lacrosse, and obviously keep your stick in your hand as much as you can, and find different ways to hitting the wall is not just kind of the right hand, left hand. It's kind of, and I think Alex, you might have touched on it recently on the pod, but finding different ways to hit the wall, whether it's behind the back, it's on the run, you're not just standing still for 20 minutes. And so, you kind of want to make sure that you're practicing like you play. And so I would say those are all the things that I would teach a player. And, what I look for Arcadia is, Arcadia has always been, known to be more of a physical team on the defensive side, and offensively, we've kind of built this culture of a fast-paced offense, and kind of, taking a lot of shots and moving the ball. And so I would say really just, looking for speed, looking for, athleticism, intensity, physicality are all kind of the character traits we look for at Arcadia. And I think we've got a handful of guys that are, dual sport, some triple sport athletes, and lacrosse is, maybe their second sport or even their third sport, but they're willing to put the work in just because of the mindset they have with their other sports that they play. So, I love to go find guys that play football, play basketball, play baseball. And so in their off season, they're, lacrosse is just as important, and they're, staying in shape and, playing a sport that they love to play outside of, maybe what their other main sport would be.
Definitely. So first and foremost, I want to recognize real quickly, Brian, Dustin is a confirmed listener.
I like that.
That is our first. That
was
is our
great.
first callback from a guest. So credit to you. Second, I'm also really happy to hear that you two as a coach, really kind of drill it to your guys to watch lacrosse. And I think there's a difference in a key difference in watching lacrosse for entertainment and watching lacrosse to get better. The biggest thing that I tell my guys is to, when you're watching a lacrosse game to get better, find a guy that plays your position and watch him, on ball, off ball for that series. And then when the ball transitions to the other side, pick a new guy. And, do that several times until you start to pick up like certain kind of consistent tendencies that, all these super high level guys do. And then just try to go implement that in your game. Like I grew up with, two younger brothers that, we grew up watching, all those really solid Duke teams. We were actually at a tournament in Oregon and watching the national championship when Duke beat Notre Dame in overtime. Shout out CJ Costabile. We everyone pretty much was like, the whole tournament was like gathered in like this like cafeteria thing and all watching on like a 32-inch TV. And when, he hit that goal, it was just like electric. And then, our LSM for the rest of the tournament was trying to take draws and take it down and score just like CJ. So, but that's like the beauty of, guys like watching lacrosse at the highest levels is you try to emulate, like what your favorite players do. So yeah, I'm always a huge advocate to my guys for watching college lacrosse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so easy to do it now, compared to like when we were growing up and playing. Like there's there's so much lacrosse that's out there. You can watch these games online. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be saying like you got to watch Duke, right? I mean, I do color commentary on the Brophy games. Like if you're a young kid, watch that. Watch players at the high school level in the ALL playing, and you could go on YouTube and watch those games anytime. You can watch these college games that it's just so easy to. And I love what you said, Alex, about watching it where you kind of pick one guy and see what he does, and you can you take it in completely differently. If you're an offensive guy and you're watching the crease attackman, you're seeing all this stuff off ball that you don't really notice, and that's just great advice. So we might have to get like a recurring like segment or a wrap up or cut up all these advice questions and answers we get and wrap it together in a little coaching guide or something.
And we'll figure it out.
Good. Yeah. Well, outside of lacrosse and coaching, obviously when you're in season, we know that's keeping you busy and everything, but what are your off the field hobbies? Where can we find you when you're not in the film room or on the field?
Yeah, I think obviously when the time is right, playing some golf, I love to get out there and play, when I can, and so that's always good to get your mind off of lacrosse and some other things. But yeah, big fan of golf, and got a close knit group of friends, and my wife and I love to travel and do stuff. So I would say those are all big things for me, and just kind of when I'm not on the lacrosse field, just like to you know stay active, but also enjoy time with friends and family.
Man, at
Another
this rate,
golf guy.
I was gonna say we need to set up like a AZ LAX Report golf outing with
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that for sure.
do like some scrambles with pair a player up with a coach from a different team, and just have a sponsor, put up
Be a good
I
some
time.
love it.
prize money or something. Yeah,
We're putting that down. That's
that's right.
great. And yeah, that or just a recurring tips and tricks, because like I still need it. That's, as we keep saying, you didn't hear our other interview, but we were talking about it again. I have found my golf swing again, I think.
Allegedly.
So I was able to beat Cody last time we played, so that's that's not a tough bar to get over, despite what he says. But that's where we're at. You mentioned traveling. What's been a fun place you've been to recently?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the lacrosse side, obviously I get to do a lot of traveling with the club side, and but outside of lacrosse, um, my wife and I are actually planning a trip. This is future trip before I get into past, but future, we're actually kind of in the works of planning. We're going to go to some of the World Cup games. The World Cup's going to be, the men's World Cup will be in the U.S. and Canada, and in a couple of years. So we're picking a few different locations to go see some World Cup games. But yeah, I mean, recent trips, was did a cruise to the Caribbean a couple summers ago, and then most recently was in Seattle for a buddy's wedding, which I'd never been to Seattle, like more than just the airport. So that was really awesome to be there. Would love that area. So um, but yeah, honestly, most of my travel is you know just local stuff. Santa Barbara, Utah. Have some friends in Salt Lake, so go to Utah a lot. But yeah, trying to expand the horizons outside of the West Coast. But yeah, the Caribbean cruise was awesome. But very excited about the trip to see some World Cup games. I think Canada. We're going to, I think, Toronto, and then Seattle. Actually, ironically, is the other spot that we were looking at.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, good plan.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up everything that we've got. Alex, you got any other questions?
Man, I don't think so. I think we're all good to go. I think we're ready to get to spring break, like he said, get a little bit of a reset you know, on the season, and second half of the season starts in about a week. So I'm excited to get back to it, and I'm sure, Dustin and Arcadia are excited too. So,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you bringing some insight and some advice. Hopefully, we get some of the players listening to this, and sharing it with their teams, and youth players especially. I think it'd be really good for those guys to get a listen to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me, and yeah, I always love spreading the word about the game, and love talking about it. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. You have a good rest of the day, Dustin. Thanks for joining
Thanks.
us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Our next guest on the podcast is a speedy and talented midfielder from Perry High School. This current junior is part of a team with hopes of returning to the state championship game, and this time taking home a trophy. While he still will have one more year of ALL competition, his eventual collegiate career will take him to New Jersey, where he will join the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. Welcome to the show, Dylan Finder. Dylan, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm a little drowsy. These early interviews are tough for me here on the weekend, but we're gonna make it work. We're gonna power through here. So, Dylan, the people want to know, you actually, did you hear your shout out last week when Jake Trailer was interviewed?
I did watch it. I did.
Okay, all right, yeah. So So for those who didn't listen, Jake, a competitor over at Notre Dame Prep, actually did say that Dylan was the hardest player for him to defend as a long stick midi. So we felt it was right to bring Dylan on and get a chance to hear about Perry. So let's jump into the team and the way this season has gone. I'm going to go back a little bit. So you guys, unfortunately, bringing up a bad memory, you do have that loss in the championship to Brophy. So what was the message from the coaching staff and kind of the message and theme for the team coming into this season as you started your competition?
I think main thing is just coming out with energy and keeping the ball hot. So I feel like championship game, we didn't really come out with a ton of energy, which is weird because that's just such an exciting point to be at late in the season. And then keeping the ball moving is a big talking point that our coaches have.
Yeah, and that's good. So I know right now, just to catch everybody up on this season, you guys are 3-2 currently, and I believe the 2 losses are both to Notre Dame, correct? Just pulling up our schedule, make sure we have our accurate info here. Oh, and
4 and 3, I believe.
4 and 3, right?
We played Foothills last night.
How'd that game go?
Good. I think we won 13-3.
Okay, great. Well, that's what we are fresh and live here, so we don't have the updates from last night. So glad to bring that in. That's good. So what has been? So you mentioned kind of keeping the offense moving and kind of coming out of energy. Is that really been the continued focus as you get to about the halfway point of the season? Are there other things that your team wants to continue to focus on as you get ready now for the second half?
Currently, our continued focus is just our offense. Our defense is playing outstanding in most of our games, pretty much in all of our games so far. So our offense, we're not clicking fully yet. And once we click fully, I feel like we'll have a really good offense. So keep moving the ball, moving off ball especially. I think those are keys to success in our offense.
Excellent. And I think you've had some injuries too, right?
Minor. I can play through them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I meant the team. I mean, we know you're a big part of it and everything, But,
that's my fault. Chase White is out right now with a broken hand, but he's hoping to come back soon.
Okay, Chase, another player we had a chance, and obviously not obviously, but for everybody listening, I did have a chance to coach Dylan in some club teams over the summer. Chase White was on that team too. We were part of a team that won Sandstorm in, I don't know, 2 years ago, 22. Right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So
Chase is a good player.
Definitely. I think that as the season goes too, offenses generally begin to gel a little bit and just get better over time, while the defense, as long as they can kind of work on staying disciplined every game, are always going to kind of be, that consistent rock for a team like Perry. But you guys will get it. How did you get started on learning about lacrosse? Like, did somebody bring you out to a practice? Did you have family that played? How did you get started?
Originally as a kid, I played a lot of football and baseball, and there was always that off season that I wasn't doing anything, and I just couldn't stop moving. So my mom saw the lacrosse team practicing at my elementary school in our big field, and she was like, hey, "You want to give this a try?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go out." And then went out. I loved it. Playing in 3rd grade, 10U lacrosse. I had a great coach who just really made me enjoy the game and love the game. And I worked with that coach up through 14U. So, yeah.
Wow. Brian, that's like 2 weeks in a row that someone has gotten introduced to lacrosse by watching another team practicing at a park. Maybe we should start practicing there.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I was like, wait a second, this sounds familiar. Well, it goes to show you, though, that it's catchy, and maybe when we do our discussions around growing the game, we just got to get more practices out there and have people see it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, good start there, Dylan. So through your career, we know you're still young. You're only a junior. You've got a good future ahead of you that we'll talk about. But so far, you've played on some great teams. You had a chance to play in the state championship game. You've played in some great club competition as well. What's your favorite lacrosse memory so far?
Memory. Oh, there's so many of them. I'll say two of them. One of them, a big one, especially growing up and starting to play travel ball, is just hanging out with all of your friends in the hotel weight rooms and hotel pools, just doing whatever young kids do, messing around. Those are really great memories I have. And then also more recently, getting the text from Rutgers after one of my games is I was so happy. I was ecstatic.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think we've talked about a lot about the camaraderie and teams getting to hang out together and all that off the field stuff is something that's really great. Who was the text from Rutgers? Was it from Brecht?
No, it was from their defensive coordinator, Jimmy Ryan.
Okay, cool. We'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I want to kind of dive into kind of, you know, your commitment to Rutgers and what other schools you were considering, and, you know, why did it end up being Rutgers, and how was that process for you?
Yeah, I mean, the process, it wasn't extremely long like some kids do, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a short process. Like I was dying. I really wanted to commit because I just loved it. But I I played in Terrapin Classic in Maryland this fall. So, and I played a good few games, and after one of my games, I walk over to my phone and I see a text that's 5 minutes ago, and I open it up, and it's a text from Coach Jimmy Ryan saying that he would love to hop on a call and maybe see if I can visit sometime, and then kind of we just went from there.
Was that the only coach that reached out to you?
It wasn't the only one, no.
What other schools were you looking at?
I know I was talking to St. Joe's. Uh, Coach Pat was getting me looks from Utah, but they were gonna make me like wait until the new year and I didn't have any more tournaments that were good recruiting tournaments left.
Mm.
So that's why I stopped at Utah. I talked to a few D2s like Rollins, a few D3s. I know Salisbury was in there. But yeah, a few more
Nice.
D1s that were just smaller D1s.
Did you visit the Rutgers campus?
I did.
What'd you think?
I loved it. It was awesome. I like the big campus feel.
Yeah,
Big campus, great facilities, great coaches, and especially a great support system behind the players.
Yeah, Rutgers. So I mean, Dylan, I'm sure. So I talked about for the listeners that I had a chance to coach Dylan. My brother Cody also was a coach for that team, and Cody played at Rutgers for a year. Was there for a year and a half before he had transferred. So a little connection to Rutgers. I actually had a great visit down. A good story. Maybe I shouldn't tell the story, but I will tell a story because we got to keep it entertaining. I actually went down. It's probably my senior. No, it was after. It was Cody's freshman year, so it was like the year after I think I had graduated. And I went down for the weekend just to hang out. My brother hang out on campus. I went with my buddy Alfonso. Shout out Alfonso back on Long Island. I haven't seen that guy in a while. And we went, we were, again, we're of age, so we're not advocating anything that's illegal, but, we surveyed a couple local watering holes and we had a good night, but we were staying at Cody's dorm room. I remember coming in at it's like 2 a.m. and we had this like crappy air mattress that we were going to sleep on. And there was a couch, like a common area kind of couch, like right around the corner from where his room was. And of course, in our infinite wisdom at that time, we're like, let's just bring this couch in the room. This is perfect. We can sleep on this couch. So me and Alfonso are picking up this couch. We're trying to like pivot it around this corner. We've got his door open. The couch is like halfway in the door. And we're like, all right, we're going to get it. And then like we turn and like there's an RA like standing right there. And they're just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, and Alfonso's like, oh, we found this couch in his room and we're trying to move it back out into the hall here. And the person just laughed at us and we ended up putting it back and we didn't get in trouble and Cody didn't get in trouble or anything, but good times down in Piscataway, New Jersey there. And also, Dylan, if you didn't know, Brian Brecht, the head coach there, is from Sachem High School, which is where both me and Cody went and played. So another connection to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here.
Yeah, surprisingly, I've had a lot of connections with them. just weird connections.
Yeah. Did you get any of those like fancy big sandwiches that they have? Those like grease truck sandwiches when you visited?
I did not. No, I
All right.
didn't.
Well, you'll have to do that. Are you going to go? Well, I guess it would be next year, your senior year, for like an official visit. You'll still get to
Most
do
likely.
that, right?
Yeah, they do the officials after you sign because
Yeah.
you're only allowed one per school.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So that's great. We talked a little bit about how you kind of started out and into this team and your future career here at Rutgers. So if you were talking to a young lacrosse player, what advice would you give them that would help them be successful in their career?
And they're just keep your stick in your hand at all times. Hit the wall, go shoot. I don't know. I just be comfortable with your stick, like in both hands especially, because once you have both hands and you have a good stick, you can kind of go anywhere with it. You can play D mid, you can play O mid, you can play attack, whatever really is your strong suit. But if you have a good stick, you're gonna go so much farther. And also, for especially for these upcoming 26s that have their recruiting summers coming up, just always play confident because lacrosse is about moments. It's not really about doing good every single time. Like if you make, everyone's eventually going to make a bad play. So if you make a bad play, just forget about it because those coaches just want to see these hustle moments, these good shooting moments, what good defensive moments. Like if you make a few good moments, you're going to be getting texts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's solid advice.
Good advice.
Dylan, have you played box lacrosse?
I've like done spurts of it, but never like a season. No.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious if that you hear a lot of play box or you don't need to do that, play a different sport. Like as you look at your background and playing football and these other sports, like what would your kind of advice be to a young lacrosse player asking, hey, should I play basketball this winter? Or should I play box? Like what would you tell them?
I think box is really good just because it keeps the stick in your hand. I don't know. When I was a freshman, I stopped playing other sports just to solely focus on lacrosse. But I know a lot of the kids I play with on my travel team, a bunch of them play football still. The Maryland commit that's on our team plays football. He's really good at football too. So I think playing a sport that keeps you physical is good. But I also see the side, especially for me, is I don't want to get hurt doing anything else. So I stick with lacrosse and I just focus solely on lacrosse. So if you have enough time to do these other sports and stay active while still keeping your stick in your hand, go for it. But if you don't think you'll have the time and you'll think you'll be too tired to keep your stick in your hand while playing these other sports, I would say don't do it.
Gotcha. When you don't have a stick in your hand, where can people find you in the valley? What are you cooking up over there?
I like to play a lot of golf. Love golf.
Another golfer, Brian, to gloat in your face that they have their swing and yours is still lost.
Well, you know what? I'll actually, breaking news, after our recording of the podcast, people who listened to last week, we did go out and play, and I played quite well.
Did you win?
I beat Cody, that's for sure. So
that's always a good thing.
That was
used to talk to Coach
that
Cody.
mattered. So it was a good day out there, great weather, and that's a good. How'd you get into golf?
I don't know. I've just loved playing it since I was a little kid. Like I've played it forever. Like either at my grandparents' house at their golf range, or even my dad just taking me to the range when I was younger. I just loved it. So, and I always had a baseball swing growing up, but since I've quit baseball, it's gotten a little bit better.
I was gonna say, like, how often do you slice the ball?
Honestly, I don't slice it heavy a lot. I'll maybe have like a baby fade in there, or like a baby draw.
Fade. Wow, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, but I don't slice it too bad.
What's the weakest part of your golf game?
Oh, my putting. 100% my putting. Yeah, kills my score, but my putting.
There you go. Well, you won't be able to golf as much when you go up in that Jersey cold winter and you're up there. big change in climate from out here, but I think
Yeah.
you'll enjoy your time up there. But with that said, we've still got another year here, and let's bring it back to the team just to kind of end it. We like to start asking these questions, kind of give you a chance to talk about your teammates a little bit. So on your team this year, who's the team clown? Who's the guy who's kind of joking around and rallying everybody up when they kind of need to get some energy?
Team clown, especially Gavin Kelly. It's got to be Gavin Kelly.
Gavin Kelly, okay.
Big team clown.
All
And
right.
then always getting us riled up when we need it. Aiden Schuyler, our goalie, has to be. He's
All
just
right.
always there. He's always getting us motivated because he loves the game. He plays with heart. He plays like he wants to win every game. So
Yeah, Aiden's got a lot of emotion when he plays. I've seen that in the games I've watched, and when I've coached with him too. Talented goalie, another good player on that team over there. Who's in control of the music? Who's got the aux cord?
music, usually also Gavin Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, or Aiden, Gavin or Aiden again.
Wow.
Yeah,
These guys are
Heart and
busy
soul
over
of the
there.
team.
Yeah.
yeah, seriously.
What's on rotation? What are like the top songs
Yeah,
this
what
year?
gets the people going?
I could not name a song, honestly. I don't think I could. I don't think I could name a song.
I couldn't
It-
either.
if
I
it-
couldn't either,
if-
bro. We let our
Yep.
guys, play music at practice, and I look at our fellow coaches all the time. And I'm like, man, I have no idea what's going on right now or what these kids are
yeah.
listening to.
So
I'm glad I'm not
Gavin's
alone.
on the aux, I have no clue. Aiden likes to play a lot of house music. So
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I think, that kind of wraps up anything. Alex, you have any other questions for us?
Yeah, I would say it's good to have those kind of glue guys in the locker room and people that play the music and all that, but who's the guy that you would say that pushes you the hardest at practice? Like if you're slacking off, they're gonna step right in and hold you accountable. Like who's that guy? Who's the team enforcer?
Oh, it's for our defense especially. It's Aiden. Aiden is on people if they're not playing. For me personally, Shane. Shane gets on me. Shane gets on me when I'm not playing well. Shane really helps me a lot. Like when we go over film, like Shane's on me. Shane's like, you got to do this. You got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. I know. Like it's bad.
It's good to
That's
have those
good, though.
guys, man. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alex. That's a big key thing, and that's a good competition support for each other, and that team culture goes a long way towards success. So, Dylan, we appreciate you joining the podcast, and want to wish you luck in the rest of this season. And we'll see you out on the field. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure.
All right. Appreciate you, Dylan. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 3 of the AZ LAX Report. If you guys have suggestions for future episodes, please go ahead and DM us at AZ LAX Report. If there are things you feel we're missing from games, please make sure your head coach submits them to the ALL website and or sends us an email with highlights from the game. With that said, thank you guys for tuning in and excited for next week. Thanks.